Hi friends, welcome to Scholar IAS Current Affairs classes. In this class, we will be covering most important current affairs articles from both prelims and mains perspective. These articles are covered from various sources like the Hindu, Indian Express, PIB, LiveMint, etc. Log on to scholar.in or download Scholar Android app for further current affairs articles, daily quiz based on current affairs, notes, classes, uh, mind maps, and everything related to UPSC Civil Service exam preparation. Let's start our first article of the day. It's about Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. Recently, 15 countries have signed this Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. However, India was also in the discussions, but India stayed out of the agreement. Anyways, India can join this anytime later. Currently, the RCEP is the largest regional trading agreement in the world. It was, as I said earlier, it was originally negotiated between 16 countries. It includes 10 Asian countries and also countries with which Asia already has the FTAs. It includes Australia, China, South Korea, Japan, New Zealand, and India. Since India has stayed out of the agreement, the remaining 15 countries went ahead and signed this agreement. The purpose of this agreement was to make it easier for products and services, both products and services, for each of these countries to be available across this region. The basic concept of this agreement is to free flow of goods and services with less barriers of tax and other barriers across this economic region. So let's understand, why did India exit this agreement? There were many fundamental issues and concerns of India that were not resolved by this when discussions were going on, and the deadline for signing this agreement was coming ahead. So the India has came out of the agreement, and there are also other reasons like India has done this to safeguard its interest of industries like agriculture and dairy, and to give an advantage to the country's service sector. If India would have entered this agreement, the Asian countries could have flooded Indian market with its own agriculture products, and Australia and New Zealand could have flooded Indian dairy sector. This would have affected the India's agriculture and dairy sector. So to safeguard this interest of these sectors, India has stayed away from this agreements, and also to give an advantage to the India's booming service sector. India already also has a trade deficit with about 11 countries among 15 of RCEP countries. And India also has FTAs with most of these countries, except China, and discussions are going on with Australia and New Zealand. But otherwise, with South Korea, Asian countries, and Japan, India already has a FTA. But despite having the FTA, India is unable to leverage its existing bilateral FTAs with RCEP to increase the imports. Our exports to these countries have either fallen or remained stable with these countries. So there is no point for getting into this agreement for India. And there is another one issue, that is rule of origin. Rule of origin is a criteria used to determine the national source of the product. Assume that India is importing a particular electronic product, say laptop. Though the laptop company might be of a US or Singapore anything, but the manufacturing of the laptop would be in China. So it should show that the product tag of that laptop should tell the origin of that country, from where actually it has been manufactured. So this is the rule of origin. But India feared that some countries could circumvent these rules to dump their products by routing them through other countries that enjoyed lower traffic. Assume that India has provided lower traffic to Bangladesh, so China can route its product to India through Bangladesh so that it can enjoy the lower traffics. So that is the circumventing of this rule of origin rules. And India was also unable to ensure the countermeasures like auto trigger mechanism to raise the tariff on products when imports crossed a certain threshold. just assume that India has allowed the India has lowered the tariffs on imports from a particular country up to $10 billion. If it is more than $10 billion, India would increase the tariffs automatically. But this countermeasures was couldn't be applied in the RCEP negotiation. So India again, this is also one of the reasons why India opted out of the agreement. And another issue is the most favored nation. Most favored nation in the sense, if India give the MFN status to a particular nation, it tells that it will not differentiate between the domestic countries and the companies from that countries from that particular country, or the investment will be treated equal for both domestic companies and foreign companies in India. So what happened is India want to exclude this MFN obligations for the investment purpose to avoid extension of benefits to countries like China. India has given the MFN status to strategic allies for geopolitical reasons. Strategic allies like USA, Japan, and all. For this, India has given MFN status. But if India enters into RCEP, India would be forced to extend this benefit to China also in sensitive sectors like defense to all its members. Because India has opened up defense sector for FDI. If India enters into RCEP, then China can also enter into the India's defense sector, and this is a very sensitive issue to India. So again, this is also one of the reasons why India doesn't want to sign the agreement. And there was a lack of clarity over the market access in countries such as China and non-tariff barriers on Indian companies. So despite signing this agreement, there was a lack of clarity of how Indian would get access to Chinese market, and also regarding the non-tariff barriers on Indian companies. Non-tariff barrier in the sense they are not related to taxes, but other than taxes. For example, like if you are exporting something, for example, like cashew nuts, so they can put barriers like you that should be coming only 10 kilos of packets, and this packaging barrier is known as non-tariff barriers. This would increase the cost of export, and this would make our product more costly in that country. So the exports would be take a hit in that. There are some China issues also. There has been escalation of tensions with China over clashes at Galwan Valley, and it's also one of the major reason for India's decision to not participate in the RCEP. And China's participation in the deal also poses various economic threats to India, like surging imports without adequate protection. Already, India is having a huge trade deficit with China, and getting into this agreement would further increase the imports from China and increase the trade deficit with China. India has took various measures to reduce its exposure to China, but these measures would wane off if India enters into the RCEP. For example, India took measures like banning the Chinese app or banning certain import of certain goods from China. But if India enters into the RCEP, all such measures should be, it would wane off further. Okay. So although India has not decided to join the RCEP, so what are its implications? So let's understand this. See, bilateral trade with other RCEP, almost all the RCEP members might be impacted, as more focus of those countries will be on economic ties within the bloc. For example, bilateral trade with Asian countries, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, Japan might be affected because they would focus more within that bloc rather than they focus on India. And it will also give less scope to tap the large market of the RCEP. RCEP encompasses population of 2 billion, okay, which means 200 crores. So such a huge population, and many countries are like economically either they are developed countries or in developing countries. So it has a huge market potential, and India would be will be left out to tap those market. And India, Japan, and Australia are also working to promote the supply chain resilience initiative. So since now India is not part of RCEP, this initiative could also be impacted. So what are the further options available for India? India is one of the original negotiating participant of the RCEP. So India can join the agreement without having to wait for 18 months as stipulated for new members. So apart from 16 original countries, if there is any other country that want to join this RCEP, they have to wait for 18 months. But this is not for India because India is the original negotiating partnership of the RCEP. And there are existing bilateral FTAs with many RCEP members. This can be reviewed, and new agreement can also be entered with other markets with potential for Indian exports also, like Australia and New Zealand. And 20 such currently 20 such negotiations are going on to enter into new agreement with where India has the export potential. There is also interest that bilateral agreement to be negotiated with US and EU, which can serve India's interest because India has the trade uh, surplus with both the US and European Union as such. Let's move on to our another article. It's about controlling air pollution. It's from Indian Express and it is important for GS paper 3, specifically GS paper 3. See, every year air pollution spikes in North India, especially around Diwali. And there are various, to curb this pollution, various measures are announced by the both government and judiciary, but they are of short lived, they are of sudden in nature. Let's understand what are the pollution sources. In India, the biggest pollution source in nationally are the cooking fires. That is from cooking from fuel woods or cow dungs, and coal fire power plants, various industries, crop residue burning, construction and road dust, and finally the vehicles. Cooking fires are the single largest source that contribute to the pollution throughout the country in India. Though the crop burning and fireworks are seasonal phenomena, the pollution during the entire winter persists through summer also. Okay, let's move on to how to deal with this pollution. See, to deal with this pollution, there is the gradual replacement of existing technology with new technology is required, such as like use of firewood, dung, and crop residues in kitchen must be replaced with LPG induction stoves. Old coal power plants must be closed and replaced with the wind and solar power plants, while new power plants must install new pollution control equipments. New coal fired power plants should be, excuse me, should be built as renewables are should not be built. So, no new coal fired power plant should be built, and because the renewable sources of energy are becoming cheaper, and industries using coal apart from power plants should gradually shift to cleaner fuel sources like gas or hydrogen, such as the iron and steel industries, and they should also become more energy efficient at the same time. Farmers will have to switch to crops or adopt alternative methods to residue management, that is crop residue management. Diesel and petrol vehicles must gradually be replaced by electric or hydrogen fuel cells vehicles running on power generation from renewable sources also. Okay, so these are some of the measures how to deal with pollution. But the government of India has also took few measures like through Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana has increased the LPG access and reduced the pollution from cooking fires. But there is a very long way to go. The BS6, that is Bharat Stage 6 regulations, will reduce the vehicular pollution over the next decade. And India needs to create institutions that will multiply these successes. That is in implementation of BS4 regulation and PM Ujjwala Yojana. However, to take all this, however, to take all these measures, they requires a huge amount of capital. Okay, and the private business doesn't find profits in investing in this, but the government can find profit through this. It can do by subsidizing the clean technology and taxing the dirty technologies like coal, coal power plants and all. Okay, so how this can be done? Okay. So to do this, independent regulatory agencies like Environmental Protection Agency can be established that can levy pollution fees or cess. Okay, but to do this, EPA, that is Environmental Protection Agency, should be given independence in the form of security of tenure, guaranteed budget, has a small percentage of total budget, autonomy to hire their staff, and to set pollution fees after justification through scientific studies. So you should be given free hand to do all these things. And only securely funded EPA with scientific and technical capacity can bring down the pollution in India. Can bring down to the level of developed countries in India also. So let's understand about levying fees, how the EPA should levy the fees. See, pollution fees can be initially that can start small and can be raised by a certain percentage every year. This gives business time to adjust and invest in non-polluting technologies. Fees should be levied where production chain has most concentrates. For example, like fee on plastic production at refineries, as it is very costly to monitor small producers and retailers of the plastic bags. So fee on fly ash or sulfur dioxide emitted from the coal power plants, and fee on coal use, and fee on diesel at refineries, because it is not practical to monitor the pollutants from the individual vehicles and pump sets. And the revenue from the fees, or the revenue collected from all these fees, should be paid back to the government. And government should decide that how it should use this fees, and it can also use this fees to give monies to the industry to upgrade to the new technology, that is clean technologies, right? Let's how political viable this option is, that is creating of EPA, is how politically viable it is. Let's understand this. See, the affected industries, instead of lobbying to stop pollution fees, can demand a piece of the pollution fee revenue to invest in the new technologies. Obviously, when the pollution fees is put on this many industries, say for example automobile industries, they might lobby to the government to stop the pollution fees. But in this EPA, instead of these industries lobbying for the cutting in the stopping the pollution fees, they can demand for a share of pollution fee, so has to invest in a new technology, that is clean technologies, right? And with the independent EPA, the government can't be blamed for the decision on the fees. Since the EPA will be made completely independent, the government, the industries cannot blame the government for the decision on the whatever the pollution fees it has levied. Pollution fees also raises revenue to the government. So this is one of the main factors why it is politically viable. And while creating the EPA body like EPA, the law should be made that EPA should publish changes to the fees and regulation in advance, because the abrupt changes can lead to opposition from the industries also. So if they are priorly noticed, it can mute the opposition from the industries as such. So let's start the next article, the last article of the day. It's about privatization of discom, that is distribution companies. Center has proposed the amendment of Electricity Act 2003. It aims to strengthen the franchisee model in power distribution segment. So this model would push for privatization of electricity distribution companies, that is discoms. And this was proposed to cut the procurement of and operation costs for financially distressed discoms. Under this model, the state-owned discom would maintain the wires and infrastructure and sub-license, presumably mostly from the private sectors, and these private sectors would supply the electricity to the consumer. So already there is a layer, that is producer, distributor. Again, another layer will be added here, that is producer and this infrastructure companies and the distribution franchisee companies. Okay. So let's understand why there is a high procurement cost at the first place. Okay, the high cost of power procurement is not because of the discoms, but it is because of the central government policies. See, the power sector grew slower than expected even before the pandemic, and the Central Electricity Authority has lowered the demand projection. But despite this, slower growth and lower demand for electricity, the discoms have to pay the fixed charges to power plants as per the agreements they are already signed. See, if there is a demand is less, the price should also be less. But in this case, since they have signed the agreement for fixed charges, even despite this less agreement, they are not getting the powers at less prices. Okay, and the coal prices have also risen in the last few years, and it is one of the reasons for increasing coal price is the central government's coal cess, and the cost on the coal sales has been passed to the discoms. And another reason, the unrealistic push for renewable energy has also raised the cost of discoms. So the privatization of distribution cannot solve the problem of rising procurement cost, and it is not the way to reduce the cost of operation. It would further increase the cost of operation. So, where lies the way forward? It tells that robust planning at all the levels of government and integration of generation, transmission, and distribution is required to address the long term crisis of the power sector. That's it, friend. Thank you. Stay tuned to the Scholars YouTube channel for regular updates. Have a great day ahead. You are powerful, brilliant, and brave. Have a great day.